Hi, my name is Jennifer Deemert. I've had the pleasure of having my senior field placement at Lansing STEM Academy. I was in Jillian McKimmy's 6th grade class, and in the end, I think I learned just as much from those 6th graders as they have learned from me, maybe even more. I was so excited for this experience in a STEM academy because of a focus in integrated science, but I never realized how much I would learn about literacy throughout the year as well. Prior to TE 405, I believed that reading instruction was non-existent in the 6th grade. I was under the impression that students would have book reports or be encouraged to read harder texts, but I never thought there would be so many opportunities to actually teach instruction and reading strategies. I naively assumed that reading instruction would be heavily needed in lower elementary school and phase out when students progress into middle school. Quickly, I noticed how off-base my assumption was, and that reading instruction is extremely present and needed in the 6th grade. My experiences teaching and interacting in my field placement showed me the variation of readers in my 6th grade class. I had students reading above grade level, some at grade level, and some who are reading way below grade level. I find the variation of readers in the 6th grade is very difficult to work with as a teacher because so much of the 6th grade instruction is based on reading and heavily relies on the student's reading ability for success. Also, through the course text, I have learned that there are so many factors that influence reading that my 6th grade class is not out of the norm. Almost all classes, regardless of grade level, have a large variation of readers. Things like vocabulary, background knowledge, and experiences are directly related to socioeconomic status and influence comprehension and reading ability significantly. In Early Intervention for Reading Difficulties, on page 13, Scanlon, Anderson, and Sweeney wrote, "Research has demonstrated that vocabulary knowledge at the preschool and early primary level is a strong predictor of reading comprehension in the late elementary grades and throughout schooling." End quote. Also, students' self-efficacy and motivation within reading directly relates to their reading ability. I began learning about my students as readers through observation and discussions with my mentor teacher. I was informed that the majority of my students were reading below grade level. My mentor teacher recommended 2 students to work with throughout the first strand. One student was a new student, and my teacher and I were curious about her reading level. The other student was falling behind in reading and would thrive with one-on-one instruction. I administered the QRI word list for both my students, followed by the appropriate QRIs that correspond with my students' result from the word list. Like mentioned in McKenna and Stahl, it is important to discover where on the modified cognitive model my students are before I could plan lessons to confront their needs. The important areas of reading I needed to assess in order to determine my students' needs was their fluency in word recognition, followed by implicit and explicit reading comprehension. Like mentioned above, I was not expecting my class to be in the same place in their reading development because so many factors influence reading, but I was really surprised at the amount of variation between my students. I first used what I learned about my students as readers to decide where to focus my instructions. I discovered that the students I chose to work with for Strand 1 had amazing word recognition and fluency, so I decided it would be most beneficial for us to concentrate on reading comprehension. After further listening comprehension assessments, I found that there is no specific need to focus on implicit or explicit comprehension, but reading comprehension as a whole. I also am a firm believer in students' background knowledge and motivation being directly related with achievement and proficiency when it comes to reading comprehension. Because of this, I brought multiple books so I could tailor the instruction to be most beneficial for my student. My future classroom reading instruction will be individualized. Students will work in centers so I can work more closely with small groups and individuals. There will be a hum of voices, with students working together and feeding off each other for reading instruction and motivation. In the future, I will place a value on reading instruction, regardless of grade or subject I am teaching. I will encourage students to feel involved in and passionate about their reading instruction. I hope to motivate students to see the benefit of reading and see how proficient reading is essential in all areas of academics and in their everyday lives.